live. I'm live with
Oh,
Abby
yeah.
Ross. How are you, Abby?
I'm very well this morning. Cloudy day in Portland, Oregon, but doing well.
Okay, beautiful Portland. Abby, I've been watching those movies you sent me of your performances about your parents, the one about your dad and the one about your mum,
Right.
which are brilliant and moving and surprising and shocking. I'm afraid we're going to give spoilers here, but anyone watching, you can find links to them on Abby's site. But tell me, Um, I don't know whether I want you to tell everyone about it. I want to know. Why don't you tell briefly the stories of both your dad and the little bit, like briefly, what you discovered about them both?
Sure. They're both stories about lives people had to live in the days that they lived, and they focus on gender and sexuality. I was blessed, truly, with 15 boxes of family documents and archives when my parents were both gone. Most people don't have this resource. It's absolutely stunning as a resource. Letters, diaries, notes to each other, letters to their families. It was an incredible resource, and I'm blessed, gifted to
Mm,
have this
mm.
because what it exposed or what it uncovered, it's not really exposure. What it uncovered was that both of my parents were living before they got married lives somewhat different in terms of gender and sexuality than the lives they lived when they got together. In those days, my father was born in 1904. My mother was born in 1909, and in the days when they were young people, anything outside of the strictly binary heterosexual gender and sexuality was just not on. Not only was it not on, it was dangerous.
Right. It
And
was
my
illegal.
father,
Was
that's absolutely right. In many states, it was
mm,
illegal and punishable by severe jail sentences and
yeah.
fines. Um, my both of my parents, more my father than my mother, were living lives of true love in their hearts that were sexually oriented towards the same sex. And both of my parents, as I experienced in my childhood, manifested a reverse sense of gender from what you would expect a woman or man to manifest. My father was fairly feminine. My mother was quite masculine. So when they were younger, what I saw from my father's diaries, I literally had 14 years of his diaries as a young person. Amazing resource.
Wow.
And it was full of love. It was full of
Mm.
desire. It was full of the pleasure that he took in his friendships and some love relationships with a number of young men of his age that he was
So he
either
was having
teaching.
sexual relationships with men secretly as a young man. He was already out in that sense to himself.
He was
Okay.
out. He was out to himself.
Yeah.
But in those days, there wasn't quite a language or a context for calling it
Mm.
what it was, right? We
No.
didn't have the language that we have today, and we certainly didn't have the social acceptance for what we
No.
have today. And
Mm.
so he had a number of clearly love relationships, in some cases explicitly or implicitly physical, with young men, and displayed in a heart, an emotion that I didn't see as having him as a father.
Yeah.
Because what happened to him in the mid 1930s was that some event in Princeton, New Jersey, where he was teaching school, caused the school board to be seized with gossip. He'd married a woman. They got divorced within a year because it truly wasn't a desiring kind of relationship. And she began to spread malicious gossip. And as she did, the school board got seized with it, and he became a crisis for the school board
Malicious gossip about his sexuality.
about his sexuality, about his
Mm.
behavior in Princeton, about their marriage, and
Yeah.
the failure to compensate the marriage sexually,
Yeah.
which my dad writes about in his diary. Couldn't do, didn't want to do, wasn't
No.
what he wanted. This is just astonishing to me because none of this was revealed or even discussed or even brought up when we were a family. So it was entirely new to me.
So,
Right?
so that's my question. If I can just interrupt for a second,
Yeah,
was there
sure.
any part of you when you read that you went, "I knew it,"
Oh
or
yeah.
not at all? Oh, there was. Okay, Sure.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's a more interesting story even than the one I told because you're limited by time in what you can tell.
I know.
But
Yeah.
my brother, my younger brother, is gay.
Yeah.
He came out in 1960 at the age of 16 in a small California farm town. Talk about courage,
Courage.
right?
Yep.
And my brother and I often speculated about my father's sexuality
Mm.
because he was a gentle, soft person with no emotions. Male in no emotions, but presenting very softly, if you will, as a person.
Okay. But it's the no emotions, which is the important bit there, isn't it? Because that implies a lid is shut on something.
Exactly. And what clearly happened from the diaries is 1935. In the end, the school board cut a deal with him. They agreed not to fire him, but to renew his contract in exchange for his agreeing to resign and leave Princeton. So that was the
Right.
deal. And he left. And at that point, Eleanor, the diaries end, his
Mm.
emotionality ends.
Mm.
Letters I received from him, he died at 93, so they were for years. Letters were all travelogues, what I did at
Mm.
the office, the wonderful opera that I saw, whatever, but there was zero emotion. And when you shut off love, you shut off everything.
Yeah.
So he shut
Absolutely.
off everything.
Wow.
You know. The same story was somewhat true of my mother, somewhat I say
Right.
because there's less evidence. But my
Okay.
mother had, at least I know from her letters, at least one lesbian affair with a fellow school teacher in northern Nevada. And her heart was filled with love, the desire and love and enjoyment of a relationship that started in 1931 and, best as I can determine, didn't end until 1953. 15 years after my mother and father married, she was still in some kind of relationship with this woman, and full of love about this woman. It practically interrupted her marriage to my father because my father saw this happening and didn't know what to do about it. So his letters reveal that,
Yeah.
right? So
But did you
both of them had this same set of attractions.
yeah, but did you experience her? Again, did you kind of know when it was revealed, but also did you experience her as more, was love more flowing in her because she was actually having a love affair with somebody, so she hadn't shut down?
No, I did not.
Okay. Okay.
Interestingly, she was a very, very, emotionally, they were of a pair, my mother
Mm.
and father. That is to say, my father had basically no emotions, and my mother had one that was
Mm.
allowed in the family, and that was happiness. Everybody had to be happy at all
God,
times.
it's
And, this
deadly.
is awful. It's awful. It rang false. It rang false to me as a child. It just didn't make sense. The one thing I did know and did see in gender terms rather than sexuality was she was so incredibly masculine. She did masculinity better than most men. Yeah,
And should we just say, to be specific, this is the patriarchal versions of masculine and feminine, right? Or this is
absolutely.
right. This is the sort of classic what a man's like, what a woman's like.
She's
Right.
tough, two-fisted, wore jeans and check shirts, hated to wear dresses, hated to put on makeup, would rather be
Sounds like
fishing on a
me.
Sunday morning. Right? She'd rather be fishing on a Sunday morning than going to church. She'd rather be hiking, camping out in the wilderness, building a house, laying pipe, sawing a wood. She was somebody for whom the things that are stereotypically masculine were her bread and butter. You
Yeah.
know, that's what she loved being and doing, and was very
Yeah.
frustrated because she had to be a faculty wife to my father and do teas and parties and wear dresses and learn to do makeup. And she hated it.
Yeah.
She suffered all her life from not being able to be fully who she was.
Right. I mean, I'm just diverting here slightly, but it always deeply frustrates me, these gender stereotypes in that, what I am, and I'm all of those things. I'm a cishet woman, right? And who knows if I was 16 now, what I would identify as. But I'm a cishet woman, but I'm all those things as well. And the idea that, surely I define what a woman is. This is
Right?
what a woman
You
is.
should. This is
I define
exactly
what
right.
right? So
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
and I would imagine of deep frustration, but to have to, now we're talking the 1950s, to have to fulfill those roles would have been torture. Did you think they had a do you think they had a verbal agreement when they met, or do you think they recognized subconsciously that the other was in the same boat in reverse? Or what do you know about
It's
their arrangement?
I know very little about what they talked with each other about in terms of
Oh,
sexuality. Okay, I
mm,
know that they did not have much of a sex life. That's pretty clear,
right.
right?
They
Um,
had you guys
they had us,
perfunctorily. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
At least three times, right?
At least
Because there were three of us.
three times. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I knew that. But what was more characteristic of their relationship, and this was very hard for their children, was that they fought a gender war until they died.
Okay, just unpack that for me.
What that means is my dad wanted my mother to be more feminine, and my mother
Fulfill. Okay.
desperately wanted my dad to be more masculine. And
Okay.
they would
Okay.
send notes back and forth to each other, nasty notes in some cases, you know, hateful notes. These are all in these 15 boxes. It was such a gift, right?
Saying what? What would the note say?
I know that you think I'm somewhat of a sissy, my dad would write to my mother, or my mother would write to my dad. I have urged you to be more masculine. I have done everything I can to be the woman you want me to be, but I think I really need you to go out and play with the boys and slap them on the back and say, "Hey, kiddo, how you doing?" And you need to come with us camping. You need to bring out the masculinity. You're setting a bad model for our two boys, right? I mean, they were very
Okay, which is
blunt,
also
especially on my
interesting.
mother's side.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and if we played devil's advocate for a second, she was fulfilling her role by putting on a pretty dress that she hated. And so she wanted him to fulfill his pretend role too. Like, I'm suffering, you
Yep.
suffer. Would that
You
be
you. Oh, I think that's very fair. Um, she
okay?
she
Okay.
she wanted him to be something he was not, and he
Yeah.
wanted her to be something that she was not. And she worked very hard, and I think that was women's lot in her era. That
Yeah.
she worked very hard to be what he needed, and in fact was very proud of him professionally. Admonished all of us regularly: "Do not embarrass your father. He's a very important person in his town."
Mm,
There was a lot of reputation at stake, and she was as invested in the family reputation as my father was, maybe even more so. Right, so she would bolster how we were viewed outside and bolster our not being critical of my dad, all the while from the files she was hammering him about his failure to be adequately masculine and how his mother had raised a frilly little girl. And she'd use very crude language sometimes to describe her
well,
unhappiness at his
yeah.
more feminine appearance, right?
Yeah. And there's three of you. Were you all born as boys, right? That was your
No, my older sister and then my brother,
gender as
me and then my
assignment.
brother. Yeah,
Okay.
we
And
two
so
male
within
birth, one
that,
female.
two
Yeah.
male, one female. And so within that, particularly with the males, but maybe she did this, they both did this with the female too. Did you sense an over emphasis on fulfilling those stereotypes as well, which you can now it contextually understand
Oh
as
yeah. Yeah,
reaction?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There,
Okay.
I was urged into sports. I was urged into the Boy Scouts. I may be the only Boy Scout who had a merit badge for library.
I bet you're not.
I'm probably not, but the Boy Scouts in those days especially emphasized masculine types of behavior,
Sure.
masculine
Yeah, yeah.
approaches to feeling. The probably the most important thing to me was the sort of distinct message implicitly from my father, explicitly from my mother, to bury any other feelings except being happy. So when I was unhappy, what I got back was, "Why, you're a very happy boy," which was a lie. I wasn't a happy boy at all. So there
Oh,
was sort of no nurturing of that. And my dad displayed nothing, right? No anger, no happiness, except when he was on stage. And that told me a lot
oh,
implicitly.
okay. Okay, just tell me about that for a second then. So what was he
Yeah.
on stage? What was that like rep? What did he do?
He was a professor of speech and drama and
Yeah.
English, in addition to being an academic administrator. And he was quite skilled actor. He pushed me onto stage when I was 9 years old, said, "Go have fun." And I believe that his own contact with his own emotionality came out through the characters he was
Yeah.
playing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
in many,
Actually.
many shows. The college theaters named after him. I mean, he was a big time local thespian, and it was fun to watch. Watching him as the Mikado strutting across the stage in a white kimono with a black bun on his head. A more humane Mikado never did in Japan exist. He loved that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he shone there in a way that he didn't in his daily life when he was quite muted, stern. My friends used to call him the judge. He scared them because he
Mm.
was so unemotional, right?
Yeah.
But on stage, he diverted all that electric energy into the characters that he played on stage.
Yeah, I have a novel in the it's way down in the pipeline, but it's on its way through my brain onto the page. And I've done quite a lot of research already, and it's set sort of in the 60s, but one of the main characters was fought in the British Army, and the British Army is absolutely lit. British Army rep, like the theatre that was going on during the Second World War, is
Mm.
absolutely littered with men. And they had a very specific word for it because they wouldn't say homosexual, but there was a very, I'll try and remember what it was, that men in the army during the Second World War who had sex with other men or were on stage in drag or were in any way doing exactly what your father was doing, there was a word that allowed it to be, this is fine within the confines of the army. So even if you're having sex with another man, it doesn't make you gay. It just there's a word for it, which I can't remember what it is, and then that's okay. And it was sort of completely white. It was the most extraordinary structural hop skip. Do you know what I mean? To just
Yo, absolutely.
somehow make this,
Yeah.
but not be like not go through. Because the other bit I wanted to just pull out was the intersection between shame and also protecting their children. And how do you contextually now, like when you know that in their era, if you were out, and I mean, even putting gender aside, because that it wasn't even a conversation, but if we just look at sexuality, it was illegal and, you got in a lot of trouble. So in terms of their pressure for you to conform, how much was shame and how much was protection and how do you relate to it now?
Let me tell you a very interesting story about that, which isn't in the piece that you watched, simply
Mm,
because limit and complexity made it difficult to tell. When my brother came out in 1960,
yeah,
my father's reaction to his coming out, this is from my brother because I wasn't there, was to say, "I'm going to send you to the Menninger Clinic." Now, the
yeah,
Menninger Clinic in Kansas was where conversion therapy was done
yeah,
on gay people, right?
yeah.
So my father's proposal was to send it, and for a while I thought that is for somebody whom I now know was himself homosexual to suggest that to his son. How do you get your brain around that? But as I went through the papers and documents, what occurred to me was it was protection.
Okay.
That he did not want my brother to go through what he had to go through. And being gay was dangerous, and so you suffered a lot. I'm making this up a bit, Eleanor, because there's no textual
Sure.
clarity about
But if anyone can take
but it
a
seemed
guess,
to me
it's you.
plausible.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it seemed plausible, what he was really saying was, I don't want him to have this experience. I want to go someplace where he can get this straightened out so it doesn't. I mean, after all, I did that. I declared myself a heterosexual and had 3 children. So this is a doable thing. I'm making the language up, right?
Sure.
But something like that could have happened. And what suggested that was after he came out, for a while, both of my parents, my mother was quite shocked. My father suggested going to the Menninger Clinic. My brother, to his eternal credit and courage, said, "I'll go if you go."
Oh my God, my heart.
They never went, of course.
Of course.
Right? That wasn't going to
Was that the
happen.
first and was that the one and only time when your parents' sexuality was named, put in the room?
It's their sexuality was not put in the room. It
Yeah,
was
but by him
all,
saying, "I'll go if you will," isn't he
oh,
in
right, right.
tacitly saying, "Hey, I
Oh
know."
yeah. Oh yeah. And my brother and I speculated about that for years, even before I had access to the 15 boxes. It was, you know, he's got to be gay. He's just got to be gay, you know.
Yeah.
And by the time I was in college and growing up, and my brother was growing up, even though it was still somewhat risky to be gay, it was much more socially out there, more socially present. So we could have these conversations
Yeah.
and then not judgments. They're like, come on, Dad, you know,
Yeah, yeah, it's
let's
okay.
come.
Yeah,
Right? It's
yeah.
okay. So the other thing that he did, Eleanor, which is quite fascinating, is later in life, in his 70s, my dad began reading books on homosexuality. He claimed to have read 400 books on homosexuality. He began teaching homosexuality in the church basement until a new evangelical pastor threw him out because it was sinful.
Teaching, what do you mean? What was he teaching? What?
The essence of the message, I never went to one of the lectures, but the essence of the message I know from my dad was, um, he realized that homosexuality was biological, not psychological.
Okay, because this was right, because this was the question I wanted to lead on to was that
Yeah.
if he was suggesting that your brother went for conversion, it implies that he felt it could be converted. But everyone I know is perfectly clear that this is an insane proposition. So
Yeah.
there must have been a moment, I guess, I mean, that clearly he was acting out his own
And
voyage of
and the
understanding.
last piece of it, which is really quite fascinating, is he was the founder of the local chapter of a group called Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, PFLAG, right? And he counseled young lesbians and gay men with respect to issues like my family has just disinherited me, they've shut the door on me, they emptied my bedroom and put it on the sidewalk, and all of the angry, hostile stuff that parents were doing to gay kids in that day. He was
Mm.
counseling them about how to deal with this. Every single piece of this he explained as in support of my son,
Okay, so your brother gave him a real gift there.
gave him permission
Yeah, gave him
to
permission.
indirectly acknowledge this without ever directly acknowledging it. I mean, I never knew anything about his Princeton experience until he was dead.
And moving sideways to gender, if
Hmm.
your father were your age now, if I was sitting here talking to your dad instead, and he had the opportunity to explore that question around his identity, is that a question he would have explored as well or not?
I suspect so. It would have been very intellectual exploration,
Okay.
but he knew it. He had to have known, given the exchanges. I mean, I'd love to have been a fly on the wall for some of their actual verbal discussions or fights
Mm,
about gender, because
mm,
this is not for them, for both of them. For me, this is not only a question of sexuality; it is clearly a question of gender and their
right,
gender identity.
right.
I identify as gender fluid they them. That's
Yeah.
my gender identity. I suspect if the language and the context and the societal presence of transness were true much earlier, I might have come out much earlier. I might have realized what I was, which I didn't. And they might have been able to touch that in some way. I mean, we've all three of us have said, you know, mom would have been so much happier as a butch lesbian, so much happier. Clearly, she wore jeans. She had short crop hair, never grew it long. She hated makeup. She loved to fish. She built houses. She would, and she had at least one, we suspect another, relationships with women that were clearly romantic, loving. I mean, and she was unhappy in the role of the faculty wife, right? Just didn't excite her.
I mean, this is I'm probably crossing a line here, but can I suggest she might have been happier simply not being gender forced into a stereotypical gender role as a wife rather than having to choose to be something else. Do you know? I mean,
Right.
if she's any, like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is one of the things that's slightly driving me mad. And certainly, I have a genderqueer child who, for a while, was identifying as trans. That they're they, them, but
Right.
they've kind of moved away from it now into they identify as genderqueer. And
Hmm.
I said, okay, just define that for me. And they said, it just means like, fuck off, I don't know, just stop asking me, which I thought was beautiful. Right, because
I
it's like,
love
it's
that. I love
so
that.
boring. Like, do we have to go? They said, like, one of the really annoying things about having to not being cis het, like, clearly, is that people constantly want you to like, fix your definition in, and the whole point is you do not want to be fixed. It drives them up the wall. And
Yep.
I witness that all the time. So
Yep.
when I hear, I suppose I'm just pushing back a little bit because when I hear, like, these stereotypical ideas of what male and female and masculine, I understand the masculine and feminine principle, and that's a universal truth, and we all understand that. But it's the varying degrees that we express in our lives on a daily basis, and
Right.
we all express
Right.
different degrees, don't we, on different times. But it's the
Hmm.
stereotypical. What I wanted to just dig into that with you now, like,
Hmm.
what's your relationship to I'm gonna slightly lead the witness here and say, what's your relationship to the construct of gender? Although, shall I ask you, do you think gender's a construct?
I hate boxes. I'm with your
Right.
daughter. It's like
They're they're
fuck
they. They're
off,
not.
leave me
They're neither a
alone.
daughter nor a. Yeah.
You know, this expression is the expression of me. It's not an expression of some
Yeah.
category. Which is
Yeah.
why I truly like the feeling that I have of gender fluidity. I think
Yeah.
if we all admitted that, we would all admit, I think, that we're somewhere along a spectrum of gender and sexuality. And the position
I
doesn't
always
have to be
suspect this.
fixed.
No.
Doesn't have to be
Yeah.
fixed. Some days I may be
Yeah.
doing things that you might stereotypically say are more masculine. Some days I'm going to do something like wearing a skirt in public that you would identify as feminine. Fuck off, leave me alone.
Right.
This is who I am, right? And who
Yeah.
I am is not fixed. I actually
Yeah.
like. Some people are quite disconcerted about the concept of fluidity. I embrace
Okay.
it because it's the one term that allows me to feel that I can be myself. And it may vary from time to time. How I feel sexually may vary. How I feel in gender may vary. And thank God we now have a language that allows us to pinpoint that, to say that.
Yeah.
So for me, I hate the boxes. We have to
Yeah.
use them because English language is the English language, and that's
Yeah.
the minute you put something in a word in print, it like fixes that word in print. But
It fixes it. Yeah.
for me, the fluidity, the concept of fluidity, is very important. And because I'm sort of Buddhist on the path, as it were,
Yeah.
one of the huge concepts of Buddhism, obviously, is impermanence, anicca.
Yeah.
And this, my very being is impermanent in all ways, in all
Yeah.
ways. And it doesn't mean I don't know who I am.
No.
At any given moment, I'm quite happy with who I am,
Yeah.
but it's not fixed in gender
Yeah.
terms. It's not fixed. And I'm happier there than having somebody put me in a box. Does that
Yeah.
answer the question?
Absolutely. And that agility, that fluidity is something that I feel sure that the fixedness rather is what causes an enormous amount of suffering. And certainly they're called Blake, so I'll use their name. So in Blake's generation,
Hmm.
certainly at school, they've just left school, but in their last couple of years at school, they were at a very liberal arts school in the southeast of England. And you could throw a stick and hit somebody who identified as trans. I mean, absolutely everybody. It was just,
To have any
um,
sense at all.
yeah. But it was that what I was aware of was that they were all, because we all know what teenagers are like as well. They were all trying on hats. They were all trying on different things and identifying in different things. And the difficult and really sticky bit comes, and I'm going to use a really tough word here, is
Hmm.
understanding. Is it the real thing or is it a phase?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
And I know
Mm.
that's especially with, it's a tough word to use, and it can incite a sense of like, you don't believe me. And we all know with kids that kids will go through a million different phases. But if one of those phases happens to be something which becomes militant and requests medical intervention, this is where it gets a little bit sticky. As have you got Can you unpack that for me a little bit as well and just tell me your
I can
experiences around that?
try. It's the real thing or phase. I'm trying to think, is it the real thing or phase?
I know.
I realized fully my own gender fluidity in my 70s. Was that real or a phase?
This is the What do you tell me? And does it matter? I mean, all of these things, do you know what I mean? It's like, these are the kind of conversations I want to get into, because I think
Yeah,
we need to start, I feel like we need to start unpacking it without fear.
yeah. I
Right.
agree. And I think letting kids explore that way is critically
Mm.
important. The science research, as far as we know, tends to say that most children have a pretty good sense of what their gender is when they're 4 or 5 years old.
This is
That's the science.
exactly what I
Right.
understand and really comprehend.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, because we are all sentient human beings who are going through space and time and experience, you may reach a point where that changes. It may be different for you. Um, and I think that can happen throughout life. I mean, for me,
Mm.
all I knew when I was a kid and when I was a young adult and when I was a professionally employed policymaker and blah, 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 was that something about me didn't fit. Something
Right.
wasn't right. I didn't
Mm.
know what it was. And I grew up in an era when my parents didn't talk about what we're talking about. So I had no context for understanding that. Right. So what the truth of who I feel I am now was revealed when I was struck dumb by a movie, believe it or not, to realizing that my own internal feminine had been just sitting around for 6 decades saying, Yoo-hoo, I'm here. Hello. Do you get
Mm.
this? Hello. Right.
Oh,
And it appeared in full flower. I
wow.
adore that part of me. I feel that
Yeah.
part of me very deeply. A lot of the sort of intuitive, compassionate, empathetic stuff that I always had, but I didn't know what it was or what to do with it or how to bring it. I just didn't fit.
Yeah.
The truth of that moment was that the feeling that I didn't fit disappeared forever. It evaporated. It
Beautiful.
evaporated. And it was a feeling I'd had for decades, right? It just
Yeah.
like that
Wow.
overnight, it was gone.
Amazing.
Whoa, that's what's happening here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Wow, so cool, right? Um, so I've been loving that ever since, right? Um, for children, I think I agree that they experiment a lot. It's risky proposition because for people who are horrified by transness, they use the social contagion theory to explain all of this. A third of all of the, no, let me get the data right here. 75% of all of the people who identify in the United States, according to the Williams Institute at UCLA, in a poll conducted this year, research done this year, are under the age of 35.
Yeah, I read this in one of
Right?
your
Is
articles. Yeah.
is that because of social contagion? Is that because it's now legitimate to recognize who you are and there's space for it? So,
Right.
as opposed to me who knew I didn't fit but didn't know why,
Mm.
you can now explore not fitting in a way that
Mm.
there was no way for me to explore it in a small farm town in California.
Yeah.
I'd have been crucified if I'd
Yeah.
known and explored in the 1940s and 1950s, right? No way, right? Now, the space is there in lots of places. It's not everywhere. There's a lot of prejudice against that. But the space is there for people to do that kind of more free-form exploration of who they are. And the
Yeah.
reality to me is we're complex beings, us humans, emotionally, physiologically, in terms of our desires. We're just complicated. Living that complexity is disconcerting. The church tells you don't do it. The rules of society say don't do it. The right wing says don't do it. The left wing says make everybody use your pronouns. I mean, it's, there's a whole, she's,
I know.
um, it's just, it's personal, and there's more space for it, in some countries, right? Not
Yeah,
everywhere, right?
yeah,
But there's more room for that to be as fluid as I actually believe the science tells us it really is.
yeah,
That we are, in fact, entities that are more fluid, and like the rest of the animal kingdom,
yeah.
you know, some of us, many of us, don't obey the conventions that have been set down by some religion or social order that says you got to be this way or you got to be that way. It
Mm.
always staggers me that people still say there's only man and there's only woman. Really?
It staggers me. I mean, there's many things that I think are embarrassing about the church, but that's definitely one of the ones I cannot get my. I cannot. But anyway, God love them all. But I think that
Right.
the answer to that, I don't. I think in a way we'll never know. Like if I look at the all the young people who were at school with Blake, and now they've all left. And I would say, oh, sorry, I'm just moving my phone. Sorry. I would say that of the many, many, many who identified as trans, quite militantly, really, at the time,
Hmm.
probably
Hmm.
only about a third are actually what I would call, maybe this is the wrong language, but biologically trans. I mean, they really are trans. They knew since they were 4 years old.
Hmm.
It's not, how they are, their fluidity underneath that beautiful umbrella is as much movable feet as everyone else's. But they really, whereas there's probably two-thirds who were just trying on hats, which is just as valid. It's just as beautiful and just as valid. But it strikes me that allowing for that fluidity and trying on of hats
Hmm.
really kind of it means that you don't so much have to, like, the more you disallow, the more militant people become. I suppose that's what I'm trying to say, right?
I
And
agree
then
with that.
and the
Yeah,
more extreme the reactions.
I think that's right. Let me just take one step back and point out
Oh,
something. In 4 generations in my family, this is in my mother's piece that you saw. In 4 generations in my family, there are 7 identifiably queer people.
yeah.
Right, my two parents, who were identifiably, if not self-aware, recognizing out, nonetheless clearly more fluid than the images that they were portraying to society at large. Me and my brother,
Mm,
in my family, my brother's gay, I'm trans.
mm.
My younger adult child who lives in New Orleans, I have 3 kids, one of whom lives in New Orleans and is they, them, and polyamorous, which is a whole nother sort
I
of
know, it's a whole
evolution.
smorgasbord of
Right.
hello.
It's pretty amazing, and
It's pretty
very
amazing, yeah.
conscious about it, like
Mm,
negotiating
yeah,
it, understanding it.
yeah.
His legal spouse and 2 of his polyamorous partners, the 3 of them coordinated the 7th birthday party in March that I went to.
Oh,
Right,
beautiful.
so it's another world, right? Which is,
It's another
and
world.
they love each other. I mean, they're all
Yeah, yeah.
great friends. And so at that generation, my niece, my sister's oldest daughter, is a lesbian, right? Of my 4 grandchildren, um, you know, I have 4 grandchildren, one of whom was they, them until at the age of 12 to 18. 2 months ago, at the age of 18, came out as she, her, and is now in the pipeline of counseling, hormones. Who knows where this leads for her, right? But changed her name, changed her everything, and this was after a lot of reflection from 12 to 18. Okay, I don't know quite what I am. They were
Mm,
always very androgynous in appearance, and now they are a she, her, right?
yeah,
And my gender fluid younger adult child, born male, has a 7-year-old who, as at this point in their life, has gone from um, he, him to she, her to they, them to he, him to they, them. And
yeah.
that 7 a
Beautiful.
month ago said, I'm a they, them, I use they, them pronouns. And they get this at a kind of intestinal level, right? So if I get in the car, I'm in New Orleans to
Yeah.
visit them, and I get in the car and I misgender my younger adult child, which happens. I am so old that some language is just so
Oh,
embedded. it comes out, and I insist on they them for me,
Yeah.
and I'm still misgendering.
Yeah. Yeah.
This it's ridiculous, right? But my
Yeah.
7-year-old grandchild will turn to me and say, "Papa is a they them."
Oh,
Will instruct me as to the appropriate pronoun, as if this was just the way it is. And you know what? It is the way it is.
yeah. Wonder if, in truth, your whole family is representative of the actual, percentages in the world. Do you know what I mean? That you're lucky enough and you've worked at it that you can all be really yourselves with
And
each other,
and
and therefore
and
is able to live fully and right.
and the family is
Yeah.
very supportive, whether they're
Yeah.
cisgendered, heterosexual, trans, queer, lesbian, whatever. It's that we have somehow, it's sort of out of the cauldron of my two parents and the burial of their own
Yeah.
gender and sexual
Yeah.
identities. What emerged was, if you will, the biologics, the reality
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we can now live that they could not, which
How
is kind of the
beautiful.
revelation of the two pieces that I did. It's like kind of this speaks to me and speak you. It's like saying, you can heal ancestry, you can heal backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I,
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I keep wanting to return to this word fluidity and agility
mm,
because it seems to me in all things that there's so much loving kindness built into those words and the living of those words, whether it's of politics, religion, gender, sexuality, whatever it is, but that kind of agility of being and fluidity where one's able to, I mean, listening is built into fluidity, isn't it?
yep,
And I don't know is built in, and I've changed my mind, and all of those just river like movements of action, which is so the patriarchy is, as we both know, is a boulder in the river of fluidity, is it not?
totally.
How do we how do we spread the love of fluidity, Abby?
I I'm not sure I have a full answer to that question. In my case, the answer is in living it and performing it. I mean, I have a long career in performance. I have a long career in public policy, so I know something about governing and how choices are made and all that kind of stuff. Um, when the disastrous regime that arrived in the United States arrived nearly a year ago, after burning out for 2 months on sort of, web-footed duck putting out forest fires everywhere, I realized I was burning out. It's like, I can't do
Too
this.
much.
It's way
Yeah.
too much. So I kind of committed myself to saying, look, be local, be where you can be effective, be where you think you may be able to change something. So, and the orientation of that for me was around uh, gender and sexuality issues, building and protecting safe spaces for trans people, period.
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And how can I do that in the most effective way where I have knowledge or leverage that may be helpful, right? Part of it is in the very two pieces that you looked at. That is to say, I think for us being people who want to live in this more fluid and tolerant and empathetic world, um, storytelling is everything. I mean,
Mm.
you know that you're a writer, you're a novelist. Storytelling is everything,
Everything is stories. Yeah, it is.
right? We're all telling stories. We're telling stories right now. These
Yep.
are all stories. We're creating a story, right?
Right.
And stories are hugely impactful. The right wing stories that have been told in this country for the last 10 years have been manifestly and demonstrably impactful and harmful,
Hmm.
right? So part of it for me, because I am a performer and a writer, is to tell
Hmm.
stories. And I kind of chose for this part of my life to emphasize a family gender transition story, of which the mom and dad pieces are the first two pieces,
Mm.
as a performance piece that
Mm.
goes all the way back to a massacre in 1857 in the state of Utah that my great great grandfather ordered to
Ah, okay.
my own transition, which is discussed a little bit in the two pieces that you saw, but that's the piece I'm now developing is, you know, and I find some wonderful things as I start to develop it, like 1950s music.
Mm,
Right? One of the things that I know I loved doing as a teenager, in this inhibited, shy, frightened, scared little boy, was to dance. And I discovered rock and roll in 1954. I'm old enough to have heard Bill Haley and his Comets when they first broke through, right? And I loved to dance what we call jitterbug or Lindy,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
very active, and that became my sport. I was one of those kids where on the dance floor in the 50s and 60s, the other kids would gather around to watch.
I'm seeing White Sox.
Right? Absolutely. You're seeing White
Yeah.
Sox, no question.
Yeah.
Crinolines on the girls, the whole thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I loved it, right? And so I
Yeah.
was on this memory lane tour the other day, like, oh my God, let's call up all this music and what is this music and just remembering. But so it's storytelling like that. It's saying here's the experience as embodied in me and other people. You know, this it's more powerful to me than the most rhetoric laden piece of analytical research you can send out. That story, in my view, will reach more people.
Mm,
You know, the rhetoric will reach the rhetoric and research will reach the scholars, and that's important because I did that. I know that. You know, that was my career for
right.
years.
Yeah.
But storytelling
Mm,
is the reach, and so I'm
mm,
working on stories, and then I work with several organizations, mostly based here in Portland,
mm.
that are doing Basic Rights Oregon and Northwest Pride, and organizations that do at a more manageable level for me, um, activities that are in support of or defense of um,
Mm.
trans people, queer people in general.
Yeah.
Um, and that's another sort of, you know, there's performance, there's political lobbying, which I do understand, did that for years, right?
Mm.
Um, and in my little place, in my little piece, contribute to holding, I think for now, holding the space for queer people because we're not expanding the
Yeah.
space, not right now, right?
Right.
We're in defensive crouch,
Yeah.
right? But holding that space for queer people.
The fear levels.
Hmm?
How are the fear levels?
They're huge. They're huge. I feel it. Everybody feels it. Everybody's at risk. I can't tell you, you know, if you said to me, Abby, come to London, we're going to do a tour, right? I'm not sure I could get back into my country. Or if I did, if my passport would be confiscated and it's the last time I travel out of the country, right? I have a storyteller friend in Northern Ireland who's willing to put me up in their Airbnb for 4 nights and tell stories and hang out with wonderful Irish musicians and fiddlers and all kinds of great people. But can I get back into my country and still hold on to my passport? I don't know. And the answer to that, frankly, is not clear.
Yeah.
It's not clear. So that's just a mini thing.
Yeah.
You know, the state level efforts, there are 800 bills right now in this country targeting trans people across state legislatures. Can't use the same bathroom, can't participate in girls' sports, can't get medical care, not in this state. You know, take the doctors and put them in jail if they have provided on the sly. You know, it's just one, you know, get the books out of the libraries. One fight after another is going on right across the country, and every one of them targets trans people specifically. We're not yet targeting gay and lesbian people, but that's coming.
Well, is it? I mean, that was, I suppose, that's the question I would have because gay and lesbian people, they were in the heat of the fire. The fight was absolutely theirs, 50, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Right.
And it always feels to me now that the trans fluid community are next in line. And after that, there'll be another community which is deemed the most threatening to the government and civil society.
Now, I'll
Would you
tell you what they're
contest that?
coming after. Yeah, I think so because
Okay.
what is already underway is the
Mm.
search by the right for lawsuits they can bring that will take uh, same-sex marriage to the Supreme Court. There's an effort
Okay.
afoot to reverse the decision that allowed same-sex marriage, and it's
Okay.
coming. It's being organized
Okay.
now as we speak. Right. So and that's public. I mean, it's you can
Okay.
track that there is it's after trans people. I mean, we're an easy target.
Exactly right. Easy.
2.8 million trans people, Williams Institute says, in the entire country.
Yeah.
Spread that out over the population of the country, and we're almost invisible,
Yeah.
except in places like Portland, which is a lovely
Yeah.
city if you're trans, because it's
Yeah.
really receptive. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm here. But
Yeah.
go to Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
not not so common, right?
Yeah.
I can go out in this city in a skirt and nobody's going to look twice. Well, some
Right.
people will look twice, but that's because I have beautiful legs. That's neither here
Yeah.
nor there. And,
You wear it well. Yeah.
and my makeup is impeccable.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you better believe it. And right bling too. I do the right bling.
Mm.
I very carefully chose these for you know,
They are
for
very
our
beautiful. Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you.
Um,
Mm.
but 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 not so much elsewhere. Not so
Okay.
much. Right. I worry for my 7-year-old grandchild in New Orleans, which is itself a pretty progressive place, but the state of
Yeah.
Louisiana is not. And the state of Louisiana is passing every bill that I mentioned, right, which will make life oppressively difficult.
For how long though? Because historically, the truth always wins out in the end. It might get the jackboot back on its head again, but in general, the long view,
I think
the
I think
beauty of
we win.
humanity flowers up through the concrete again and again and again, right?
If I had a nickel for every time I used exactly the same metaphor, I'd be wealthy.
Yeah.
In fact, I did this in one of my Substack. I have this Substack column, Sheathed Sword, and I
Yeah.
did one like maybe a year or two ago about flowers growing out between the cracked concrete, literally, which
Yeah.
is what I think
Yeah.
that I agree with you. That's hope, and that is
Yeah.
the symbol of what will happen here, even with this regression, and it's very serious and
Yeah.
lethal for some people.
Mm.
Um, we're the trans community is out in a way that will never be put back fully into the bottle, and so the goal right now, I think, strategically, is hold our own, protect
Mm.
safe spaces, fight the fights where the fight is possible. No, you're going to lose. This Supreme Court is going to decide against us time and time and time again because it's full of right wing troglodytes. That's
Yeah.
just what it is. And they're going to be
Yeah.
there for a while. And I will be dead before I think things look more beautiful.
Okay.
But we got to hold the space. We got to hold the space because I think you're right in the long run. The change has gone like this and then like this and then like
Right.
this. And we're in one of those moments.
We're in one of those moments. We are.
You know,
But the progression of loving kindness and humanity as this beautiful, agile, fluid, amorphous beast that we are
mhm.
as one, you are another myself. This continues to grow in its heart space, irrespective of this pull by the kind of outdated binary jackboot that
So how do we do
tries to put us in a
this?
box.
Right. So how do we do this? How do I do this? And part of it is educational. I found myself a couple of years ago in a conversation here in Portland in a room with four other cisgendered heterosexual couples and me.
Mm, mm,
And they were relatively progressive, but not very well informed people. And they said, "Well, sit down, talk to us. You say what the hell does trans mean? Right? What is this?" Because they really genuinely didn't understand. And I will have this conversation with anybody who's genuinely curious, whatever they think. I won't have it with people who are hostile,
no.
right? I had a
Yeah.
comment on one of my Substack pieces just the other day from somebody who said only two genders and this is da, 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 da.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to
Okay.
respond to that.
No,
I'm not going to respond because it's not.
it's okay.
There's a closed mind just not waiting to open, right?
Yeah.
But with this group, I said, okay, so let me take you on a thought experiment here. How many of you have ever changed your name? We went around the room, and the answer was everybody.
Everyone. Right.
All the women had because most of them
Had
got married
to.
and took their husband's name, right?
Yep.
So that changed their name. Others had taken their middle name instead of their first name. Other had made it into a nickname. Others, I have a friend whose name is Alice and goes by Ali. I mean, everybody changes their name, right? And
Yep.
and it was kind of like a wake up moment for some. It's like, oh right, and even the men, one had done rodeo, and as a kid doing rodeo, he changed his name. He had a rodeo name,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Different identity.
It's a different identity, right? So it was kind of like, oh, it's not so weird to change your name, is it? Right? And then you do the little thought experiment about going into a room with a pair of automobile keys that you found on the pavement and asking people you don't know. Somebody left their keys on the pavement. Are they here? They here?
Oh, that's
Are
beautiful. I've
they
never heard
here?
that.
Right? It's the singular use of the plural they. We do it all the
Oh,
time. We don't think
yeah.
about it,
Never heard that. That's beautiful.
right?
Yeah.
So it's in our brains, but it's in another file drawer somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously, what we all meet again and again and again, and we're seeing it politically, is the fear and the threat, this idea that in any way not fitting into a fixed position is somehow going to threaten a million other things, and taking that
Right.
fear away, often it's achieved through, in fact, it's always achieved through a shared humanity and through telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and even if it's one by one by one by one, which often it is,
Yeah.
one by one, right? And even that person who's left a comment, yeah, there's clearly no point in getting into a forward-facing conversation with them, because this is like, I think this, blah, blah, blah. But if you
Not
happen to
useful.
bump into that person at a cafe and their spoon dropped on the floor and you picked it up and you started chatting and la 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 la, and eventually you discover that your children went to the same school, and then you discover the bit that you've already got this common ground, and that's for me another route of,
It would be a
it's
different
always about shared,
conversation, wouldn't it? Yeah.
totally different, because it's suddenly like,
Yep.
oh, you're a person.
Yep.
Oh, okay, okay, fine.
So it comes back to something you were asking about before. Is there a lot of fear? Yes, there's fear in the trans world for sure. I mean, I go to
Mm,
support group meetings and participate in Zoom zangas and all kinds of things with queer people. And yeah, there's a lot of almost paranoid fear about what's going to happen to
mm,
me. There's no question. I'm not saying it's wrong by calling it paranoid.
sure,
Sometimes even paranoids have enemies. I mean, it's
sure. Yeah,
there's no question, right?
yeah.
But the other thing is we're in a society in a moment in history where the world is driven by fear and anger,
Mm,
driven by it, and in my view, at least, being systematically manipulated by social media because it gets clicks, sells products, gains movement adherence, blah blah blah. But the fear and the anger are dominant right now, right? And the love and empathy and acceptance and compassion, we're not, yeah, I get that when I go to a sangha. That's people who think like me and breathe like me and believe like me. But not a lot of the world is there. So, and I find this myself. I mean, I get into some hostile situation, I can feel myself bristle, and I can start reaching for arguments. Hell, I was a graduate student once. I'm really good at
right.
that.
You know the playbook, right?
I
I'm not getting
lived the
into an
damn
argument with
playbook.
you, Abby.
I lived the damn playbook. It was like I know that,
Yeah, I
and
know.
and it ain't useful. So I'm unlearning that. Uh, but we're a lot of the world around us is now caught up in what's his name in the UK, Nigel Farage. Please, this kind of, we're arguing now all the time, um, and it's
Yeah,
not
I sit
moving.
on the.
It's not moving a ball.
I
Go ahead.
mean, I sit on the board of the Good Law Project. I don't know if you are familiar with them, but they are
No.
they use the law to hold power to account, and we are.
Mm,
It's run by a guy called Jolyon Mormon. He's brilliant. He's a Casey, and the thing that we're really looking at now is like, what's our next Goliath? And undoubtedly, it's Farage and reform, and yeah, I think I got into a conversation with somebody recently, a great friend actually, about Farage. And, I could see that they were like, yeah, but he this and that. And I just had to say, yeah, but he's a liar.
hmm
Like, I would literally rather sit down with, you pull any famous right wing dictator out of the hat, because at least they're honest. This guy pretends to be like, he doesn't give a shit about his policies. He'll go with whatever. He's just a liar. And I
hmm
fucking hate liars. I cannot stand it. So, yeah, that's definitely what we're up against. But as well,
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, every day I go out and I talk to the trees and I look at the sky and I remember the path that we're on, because I have to choose every day to not go down that road of it's all fucked. Because I don't,
Right.
right. That's not the world that I choose to live in. I'm fully aware of everything that's going on. But I choose every day to go out and trust the mystery and look at the sky and talk to the trees and talk to you. And do you know what I mean? Just see the absolute beauty that is constant all the time. It doesn't shout very loud, but it is there for every single person to feel and taste and touch. And that's, I think, when I meet a super frightened, angry person who's shouting at, and they don't really shout at me because I don't get into those situations. But when I'm around that, always it's like, do you want a cup of tea? Do you want a biscuit?
Something simple like that. Right.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
let's start it
I
down.
I live in a kind of a liberal bubble here in Portland, so I don't encounter a lot of hostility. We have some external troop invasion things going on, but they're not really as
Mm,
significant in town as you would think they might be. But
yeah,
and we're fighting them pretty hard and in the right way in
yeah,
the law courts
yeah,
and
yeah,
the way
yeah.
it needs to be, the way it needs to be resisted. So I'm all for resistance. I have no
So am I.
objection.
Political protest. I mean, I've just written a
Yeah.
novel about protest. It's coming out next year, and I am all
I
about
look forward to
protest.
reading it. Yeah.
Yeah, you will. There was something you said earlier on, because I can't talk about it because it's a massive reveal. But there was something early on in our
Oh.
conversation. I was like, "Oh my god, that's so exciting!" But I will just, I will keep it shut. But when you get to that bit, you will laugh, and I'm sure you'll call me.
I'll recognize it probably.
You will
Yeah.
recognize it. We're almost at time, Abby. But there was this one thing you said earlier, which I
Yeah.
just want to pull that thread on. You said
hmm
that in your performances, you're looking at a slaughter that happened in 1856, and you're seeing a through line, is this right,
hmm
all the way
hmm
here to
hmm
your realization and living of your fluid, agile identity?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love that. Can
Yeah.
you can you just tell me about that through line?
Yeah. The massacres in the state of Utah, my ancestors on my dad's side were Mormons. And the
Right.
massacre was of a wagon train in 1857 in Utah. It's a famous massacre called the Mountain Meadow Massacre, in which my great grandfather gave the order that led to the slaughter of 140 men, women, and children in the grasses of Mountain Meadow. That's the short version of a much larger story. But when I, that is my ancestry, that is my karma. He laid down a karma that it was a super angry, patriarchal, misogynistic anger that is buried only 4 generations back. It's not that ancient, right?
You can pull on
It's
that thread.
I can pull on that thread, and that's what I'm trying to do in that piece of the story is embed the patriarchy in my own family karma. That's
That's so
basically what
fascinating.
that's
And the
about.
intergenerational trauma, which you are now able, with the language that we have now, and that is progression, you're able
hmm
to articulate that. Would
Right.
that be fair to say?
Oh,
Okay.
I think that's that, and it's very consistent with my sense of this is a piece of family karma,
Mm.
and I'm a firm believer that karma gets passed down, and I'm a
Mhm.
firm believer in the concept that one can heal it backwards, as I said. That there's
I have experience of this, so I know this
have you?
for a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, it's happening in every family, right?
Yep. Every family has
But
this. Yep.
but every family has this. So when a family is lucky enough to have reached a point where its members are able to articulate and have the resources to act, these are deep healings,
Right.
one by
And what
one.
I'm determined is that this karma will not be passed on by me to my children.
Right,
Period.
right. Which is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful uh, actions one can take in one's life.
I think so. And my son and I,
Yeah.
my older son and I plan a trip to Mountain Meadow in Utah
Oh,
to actually think of something ceremonial that will, you know, heal that trauma in the desert in Southwest Utah.
that's so beautiful. I often feel all of my work is really, just undoing knots
I see that
all
in
the
what I
time.
read of your work. I see that in what I read of your work.
I'm just, and in a way,
Yeah.
because a lot of my family they don't have, they don't perceive the world how I perceive it. And so I think they just find me annoying and wish I'd shut up.
Yes,
But
I'm
I
sure.
can't help it because, for sure, I can't help it though, because once you've seen, it cannot be unseen. It cannot.
Yeah.
And so
You
I am
can't close your
driven.
eyes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
okay, so I'm annoying, but I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. So I just carry
I'm
on doing.
so pleased to read what you're writing, which I'm mostly reading in your Substack box because I haven't
Mhm.
yet picked up one of your novels, but I plan to, so
Oh,
I can
thank
see
you.
what you do with it. But I honor what you are trying to do with that legacy. I lived in the UK for a year and a half, and my graduate student specialty was Western Europe, so I studied the UK a lot, socially, politically, economically, and you live in a unique architecture yourself, as I read it, in the history of the United Kingdom, this aristocratic background thing, and healing that, dealing with that, facing that. I salute you for going to that well. I think it's terrific.
Well, thank you. I salute you for doing yours, Abby. I think we're both doing the work that we know matters. And, every day I sit in front of my altar and I meditate, and I know that those moments I spend there, they are what matter. And everything else is just ice cream. That's what I say to myself. It's just ice cream. This bit,
Yeah.
when I sit before the great blue yonder,
And
that's what
doesn't that
matters.
impact the rest of your life? It impacts the way you deal with the rest of the
Absolute
world.
impacts the rest
Yeah.
of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Abby, we're going to leave it there, which is a beautiful
Thank you.
note to leave it
Thank you
on.
so much, Eleanor. I'm
It's been
very
beautiful.
grateful for
Thank you
this
so
opportunity.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll see you in the stacks. Lots of love.
Okay. See you in the stacks.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.